Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Nashville Predators Throwback 2000 franchise mode here in NHL 24. Gonna get weird getting used to saying that, actually. But anyways, in last episode, if you didn't catch it, it was the first episode of the series. We basically just went over our roster in the NHL, AHL, or unsigned prospects, and that type of thing. So just basically a nice little setup episode. In today's episode, we're going to finally start simulating. We're probably not going to simulate too much because obviously it would be fun to kind of take it a little bit slower in the first few years. But obviously it should be exciting once we actually start simulating to see how this team does, because we shouldn't be really that good of a team in this first season unless the sim gods are on our favor for some reason. But you can see this is what our team is still rocking to start the season. I am going to make some adjustments though, with some call-ups and stuff like that after I get through the comments and whatnot, but we are likely going to call up at least a depth defenseman and another depth forward, because right now we have Sebastian Bordelot as our only scratch guy, but I'll probably put him in the lineup over Cote just because Cote's been an enforcer, so might be changing this lineup a little bit just to make it a little bit better. Also getting maybe David Legwand into a better spot to help him out offensively and get him some growth early on into his career. But anyways, before we get into starting the simulation, let's get into your guys' comments now, see what you guys have to say. And yeah, then we'll get into making some adjustments to our roster and getting ready for the start of year number 1. So the first comment is from Jacob Filicetti, who says, "Great work with your roster. So glad all the effort paid off into a good product, and I hope you have fun with the franchise with it. Also, to answer your question, Tom Fitzgerald was the captain of the Preds from 98-99 to 2001-02, and I knew he was a captain of a team, but I didn't even think for some reason that he was our captain. I was thinking of when Florida, but then when I was thinking of Scott Mellenby, I'm like, wait a sec, who is... when was Tom Fitzgerald a captain? Because obviously he wasn't a captain when he was with like the New York Islanders, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, so it only leaves this period. So he's going to be our captain, but he's a third liner, which is interesting. Obviously, at some point, maybe we could promote somebody else into a captain, but Tom Fitzgerald is not really that bad of a player. He's pretty useful as like a center winger guy, so hopefully he's here for at least a couple of years. But then again, he is 31 years old. His contract ends at the age of 34, so I don't know how much longer he'll be after that contract ends, but obviously he's a decent player to hold on to for now, maybe trade away at some point. The next comment is from Nicholas Smurs, who says, "You're truly doing God's work, man. I mean it. As somebody who grew up playing NHL 98 and Face-Off 99 with my dad, this is going to be awesome. 99-2000 is when I started watching hockey." And that's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I like it when people have some sort of nostalgia from these roster builds. Like, they kind of... it takes them back to the time when they were like playing it with, like you were saying, with your dad, for example. I just like kind of those like type of things that it kind of just... gives somebody a little bit of a memory that they had way back in the day. Like, for instance, for me, when I do like 2003 rosters and stuff like that, I honestly think of back in the day when I'm just like loading up NHL 2003, hearing Sweetness by Jimmy Eat World and all that. Like, that was a really good time for me. So I like obviously having that where people who watch my videos and play this type of roster build could have that same type of like nostalgic feel to when they playing this roster build. The next comment is from Flame Husky, who says, "This is the real SnipeNScore experience." And I mean, yeah, I guess it technically is my peak experience in the sense, because technically that's, I guess, what I'm known for at this stage is just my throwback rosters and franchise mode. So yeah, this is probably as good as it gets. Maybe at some stage it'll get better, but hopefully EA adds some good features and stuff like that for like that could help me out with my throwback rosters to make them even better than they are, because obviously like stuff like draft classes and whatnot would make this a lot better for sure. The next comment is from Trailer Park Boys, who says, "Hopefully they include the import draft class option for NHL 25 like they have in Madden. A perfect example of this is Bengal, who is a Madden YouTuber. It would also be cool to have more than only 25 years for a franchise and have no limits on the number of years you could play." And I totally agree with both those things. Obviously, the import draft class option would be really nice. I think I can make a decent chunk of the draft classes in this roster build, which is nice, but obviously to have like set things that for specific draft classes, being able to maybe have unsigned Russian prospects type of things as well would make it obviously a lot better. But also, like what you're saying, with having more than 25 years of franchise mode, I think that would be cool. But the only thing I would say with that is obviously the game would have to track a lot more stats, for example, when you're doing like the record book and stuff like that. So it's a lot of memory that it would have to kind of remember in a sense, like award winners and all that, if eventually they have like a recap kind of screen that they're trying to implement. Yeah, so 25 years plus would be amazing, but at the same time, I don't really know if it's something that they'd look into. I hope it is. Obviously, I think I've brought it up to them before, but I think it's mostly the reason why they have it capped at 25 years is because they kind of, I feel like they're a little bit behind the 8 ball compared to like 2K and stuff like that with like the amount of years you could do in franchise mode. So, and also they don't have the same like budget and all that stuff. So maybe that's reasoning why they don't do it. But hopefully they do something like that down the road. Next comment is from Sound Taco. It says, "Rung what you brung and build this team around the prospects. Don't forget to see what the AI does at the trade deadline every season. Always fun to see if the players end up on teams they actually played for or for famous faces on unusual franchises." And yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure I take a look at the trade deadline and stuff like that, because obviously it's really cool when you see guys like sign with other teams or actual teams. Like we'll do that in the offseason too, where there's free agency and stuff like that. We'll see where everybody's signing and stuff like that, so we can kind of see how the league almost kind of re-implements itself in a sense, like how these 25 years compare to the actual 25 years, because by the end of the series, technically, we'll probably be right around modern day era, which is pretty crazy, because we'll be in like, I guess, 24, 25 at the end of this, but it'll be interesting to see what the league looks like at that point, like if there's anybody left at that point. Probably not, but like in like 20 years at least, to see what the league's looking like in 2020, seeing what it looks like during like the era when the Blackhawks won a lot of Stanley Cups, the Tampa Bay Lightning won a lot of Stanley Cups. Will they be actually as good in this franchise mode? And the last and final comment is from Tyler G 1994, who says, "I will die on the hill that this is the best roster on NHL 24 hands down. So excited for a Throwback 2000 series." And I appreciate that, man. I know Tugi even said that this roster is probably the best roster that's ever been put out, which is a lot of what is it? Not really what I was expecting from him to say, because I know that a lot of other people put out really great rosters, like current rosters and stuff like that, KHL rosters. But I guess the amount of work I put into this was more than enough warranted, because of the fact I created almost 2,000 players. So it's going to be exciting once I put up my 92-93 roster, which is the next project that I'm still working on. Hopefully I could get that done in the next like 2-3 months or something like that, so I could have it out for the summer, so you guys could have at least something to play with in NHL 24 franchise mode. But anyways, those were the comments we got in last episode. Let's go ahead and make some adjustments to our roster, and obviously then we'll get into simulating a little bit, seeing if there's anybody that signs with any team, because obviously there is free agents I made at the start of franchise mode. So like Roman Czechman, it could sign with somebody, that type of thing. But let's see what we could do in terms of adjustments. So in terms of people I want to call up from the minors first, because we got to call up a defenseman and a forward. I could always go for the best available, or I could call up the worst available. I'm tempted to go with Rory Fitzpatrick almost over Jan Vopat, which is an interesting one. The only reason is just because Rory Fitzpatrick's already 25, but Vopat's 26 though. I forget how long these guys are signed for. 1 year. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure yet who I want to call up defensively. From a depth forward perspective, I think Mike Watt's got to be the guy, because to be honest, nobody else here is warranted. I mean, I could call up Phil Crow, because he's not going to develop anyways. Should I call up Phil Crow? Does the AHL have any depth options? I got to double check on that first. Just because if they don't, I'll have to sign somebody random in free agency just so that they have a player that could replace them, because I don't want to have it just give me a random other dude. Oh, they have Boykov, just a depth defenseman. So I'll probably sign them a depth forward, so that way at least they have somebody going into their lineup when we make the call-up. So let's go to free agents here. And we are going to offer a contract to one of the lower-end forwards here, I guess, because we obviously aren't trying to sign anybody good. So if we go down here, we should be able to find somebody that's kind of mid, that won't be in our NHL lineup. Somebody like Andre Faust, for example, who's 67, might be okay. I might want to go for somebody a little bit younger. I don't want to cheat the system and grab like Jed Ordmeyer, for example. I'm going to go for Patrick Fisher, just because he's a 68 at 24. I don't think he's going to develop to that bottom six potential that he was in real life, because he played like 12 NHL games. We'll sign him to his ELC, and he could play in the AHL as a replacement for whoever we call up. I think that would probably be the best option for us. And I guess we'll advance a few days just to make sure he accepts, which he probably will. And there he is. He accepts. Perfect. So we'll get him into the lineup down there in the AHL. And I'll probably... Who do I want to call up? Who do I want to call up? I think I'm going to call up Crow. I think I'm going to call up Crow. So that way Mike Watt gets a little bit more growth because he's not going to get a lot of ice time in the NHL. So we're going to call up Crow because he's already 29. He's not going to develop much more. And I think I'm going to also call up, as the depth defenseman, I'm going to call up Fitzpatrick. Or should I call Vopat? Let's go with Vopat, I guess, just because he's the best. Makes sense. So we'll call up the two of those guys. And then we'll go to edit lines in the AHL. And then we'll get some playing time for Patrick Fisher. So we'll get him some second line ice time with Denis Arkhipov. And then we will go up here and we will put Boykov into the defensive side of things. Oh man, the AHL does not have great chemistry. Is there a way to get rid of the minuses? Not really. I guess we'll run with this. It's better than nothing. Yeah, I guess it's better than nothing, to be honest. Yeah, I guess we'll go with that. And then let's just make sure the forwards have as much good chemistry as possible, too. Let's go with something like that. So Cesar plays with Arkhipov and Fisher. I like that. Now let's get maybe some other adjustments. Doesn't really matter too much. And that's fine. We'll go with that for the AHL. For the NHL, obviously we are going to make some adjustments here. So I'm going to take Patrick Cote out of the lineup, not for Phil Crow. We're going to put Bordeleau in the lineup because I do like Bordeleau a little bit better. And we're going to readjust this a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Mark Mowers as the fourth line center. Put Legwand up. Robitaille will play on the left wing. Bordeleau. Actually, Bordeleau was good at faceoffs, I think. Yeah, he was. So I'll put Sebastian Bordeleau down the middle. Mowers can play on the right side. Robitaille on the left side. Veli Pelton in there. Fitzgerald. Legwand on the third line. I think could be okay. I just don't really want to rush his development. And I will give him some power play time, I think, as well to start year one. I could put Yachmanov on the top line, but I think he's a playmaker, right? Yeah. Thought so. Let's get Legwand some power play time, though, as well on the second unit. So that way we can get as much growth as possible from him, maybe. I will take who out of the lineup on here? I guess Tom Fitzgerald won't be on the power play. Yeah, I guess we'll take Tom Fitzgerald off the power play and put Legwand down the middle. And we will probably take Peltonen off as well. Yeah, I guess we'll take Peltonen off as well. And I will throw in on this unit Carlos Skarastins. Oh, that makes it a -2. Wow, okay, never mind. Well, we keep it like that. I don't really care if it's a -2. We're trying to be bad in year one anyways. But I want to just make sure people are getting some decent ice time here. We'll take Tom Fitzgerald off this unit as well for Legwand. That makes it a -3 only. That's good. And then penalty kill wise, obviously, yeah, Tom Fitzgerald could stay on the first unit. He's not really that great of a fit, but it is what it is. I don't really care on how our lines are set up too much. I just want to make sure Legwand's getting that ice time so he could hopefully develop into that top 6 forward we need. And then obviously, hopefully, some of the guys in the AHL like Mike Watt can develop a little bit more. Same with Denis Arkhipov, because obviously we don't really have too much prospects other than Martin Erat, who's unsigned at the moment. So hopefully he could come to the NHL in a few years or the AHL and kind of develop into being a good line mate for David Legwand. Okay, so I think we are ready to actually finally start simulating. I know we're like 13 minutes or so into this episode. But we're finally ready to start simulating. We will go through the entire preseason. We'll take a look and see if the AI makes any signings to start this season. We only have 3 preseason games. That's interesting. Considering there's only 28 teams in the league at this point in time, it gives us only 3 preseason games instead of 7 or whatever it is. So we're playing Chicago, Detroit, and St. Louis. And our first game ever is against Pittsburgh, which is interesting. So preseason wise, we somehow go 3-0, which means we're going to have a tragic regular season, I think, but that's kind of interesting. When is our first home game? Against the Islanders of all teams. Okay. I wonder what team is going to take off this year completely, because I'm curious on that. Let's go to free agents, or the free agent thing, and see who is signed anywhere. No trades to start the year. That's good to see. Signing wise, Steve Smith signed with the Dallas Stars. Obviously, he wasn't a free agent in real life, but the game for some reason keeps dropping him anyways. Pasi Nurminen signed with the Oilers. Esa Tikkanen with the Dallas Stars. Frantisek Music with Anaheim. Brent Fedek with Boston. Per Gustafsson with Philadelphia. Thomas Sandstrom with Buffalo. Nick Wallin with Toronto. Interesting. Newman with Anaheim. Miller with Chicago. Hayda with Ottawa. Casero with San Jose. Sekeres with Vancouver. A lot of guys signing places. Cristobal Huey signed with Carolina. Not bad. Colorado gets Bob Rouse. Solid. Won't name them all out, but if you guys see anything interesting, you can let me know. Gerber signing with Chicago. Backstrom signing with LA. Peter Kayanek with Buffalo. Mark Streit with Colorado. Roman Czechmanic signs that one-year deal with the Canucks. Robert Reichel goes to the Florida Panthers. Tim Thomas signs with the New Jersey Devils. Okay. David Vaborny to the Islanders. Andy McDonald to Colorado. Miroslav Lichky to Carolina. Lubomir Visnovsky to San Jose. So a couple players off the free agent board. Not all of them will sign places, but it's still interesting to take a look at that anyways. So considering this is our first game of the series, we might as well do a slow sim just because it makes it a little bit more interesting. So our first ever game in this Throwback 2000 franchise mode, we're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is not great considering they have Jaromir Jagr, but let's do a slow sim, or not really a slow sim, but a first, like an actual real-time simulation in a sense, and then obviously the rest of this will probably simulate like 2 months or so in this episode. Try and keep these episodes a little shorter. Let's see what happens. First period of this franchise mode. 2-1 Pittsburgh. Jaromir Jagr, of course, scored early on. Joseph Baranek made it 2-0. And David Legwand scores his first NHL goal. So shout out to David Legwand for scoring our first goal in, well, not franchise history, I guess, because the Preds played in 98-99. But first one of the series goes to David Legwand. Of course, that is good to see him on the board early on. Second period. Hey, we took the lead. Okay, 2 power play goals. Our power play is off to a good start, which is kind of weird considering the chemistry wasn't that good. Yachmenov and Shellberg. We have the lead after 2. Can we win our first game in this franchise mode? The answer is yes. We do get one more goal. It's Sebastian Bordeleau, who we put in the lineup, and somehow we beat Pittsburgh in the first game of the year. Interesting. Mike Dunham played pretty damn good in that game, and Legwand had 2 points. So David Legwand could end up being a potential Calder favorite if he continues on that trajectory. But obviously, the Calder is kind of broken in this because of the fact that it considers a lot of guys that it made all rookies. So Pavel Bure would be even considered a rookie, even though he's been in the league for a while, I think, at this point. I think Pavel Bure is a rookie considered in this. Or Paul Correa, maybe one of those 2 guys. But anyways, that was our first ever game. Let's see how we do in our first month of action. Like I said, we'll probably go to like December the 1st. And then take a look at stats like on our team and around the league and see what's going on so far at this point in time. We do lose to St. Louis. We do beat the Islanders. We lose to Anaheim. And there's a 3-game losing streak as Rob Valachevic has been injured with a sore hip. Unfortunate, but at least it's not anybody huge. A little bit of an interesting start to the year for our team. Definitely inconsistent as we would kind of expect, considering where he shouldn't be a contender. Cote was playing second line, which is kind of funny because obviously he's not an offensive guy, but he definitely was punching a bunch of faces probably. It'll be interesting to see if he had any fights in that span. We have a couple more games here to go. There's another loss and a win. So we are 5-8-0-1, which is interesting. We are currently last place in our division, not a surprise. The Red Wings only on 12 points so far is kind of surprising. They're 4-4-4. The Blackhawks are 6-8-1, but they're above them. And the St. Louis Blues are off to a killer good start, which makes sense considering they won the President's Trophy in real life this season. All right. Let's do one more month, and then we'll take a look at some player stats, take a look at how teams are doing so far. Kind of just not wrap up, obviously, this season, but it's kind of more of just like a look to see how our teams are doing. Oh, man, I forgot that I turned off morale meetings. I turned off morale meetings, though. What the hell? I got to double check and make sure morale meetings are off. Or turn them off instead. Because I don't want to be doing these things. Tom Fitzgerald is not happy with how the team's been performing. Let's just go persuade. Because I don't really like having these morale meetings. So at least he's going to lose morale because of that. Just not great considering Tom's our captain. I don't really know why those are on because I thought I turned those off. I don't know if I could turn them off now too, which is annoying because I don't really like how those pop up all the time. Usually I don't have those morale meetings on at all. So let me double check and see if I could turn them off or not. Morale meetings. I turned that literally off. I literally did. So I don't know why that got turned back on again. But we'll turn that off. I'm glad I could actually do that still within the mode. Because if I didn't, I'd probably have to reload this entire franchise mode or some shit like that. Because I honestly don't really like those meetings. They're okay. But at the same time, they need a lot of work to them. In my opinion. Okay, let's see how we do in this stretch of hockey. Losing games, winning some games in overtime. We did have our first tie, which was against Colorado. There's another one, speaking of which, against Tampa Bay. Bill Holder was never injured. Yeah, we're definitely not going to be a playoff team in this first year because we're losing a bit too much. 10-15, 2-1 at, I guess, technically now December the 1st. Interesting. We're above the Blackhawks, which is kind of surprising, but we do have 3 more games played. So that's where it's going to be probably interesting to see if the Blackhawks could pass us. They probably will be able to. But it is quite tight, the division. We're only 4 points back of the Red Wings, but they have 2 games in hand as well. We've played the most in our entire division. Right now, St. Louis is leading it. If we head over to the Northwest, the Avalanche are currently in first, not a surprise. Oilers at number 2. And then you have Flames at 3. Canucks are dead last in the Northwest. They have been tragic. Must be the Mark Messier effect. 5-15-1 and 2 technically, but it doesn't show that on the actual thing, which is kind of weird. Pacific Division wise, right now it says the Coyotes are leading, which is a very big shock. I don't know why the Coyotes are doing so well. Maybe because Happy Bullen got called up from the minors, because I had him in the minors. And then Dallas is number 2, LA 3, San Jose 4, and the Ducks are dead last. Okay. Atlantic Division, Penguins are in first, even though we beat them in the first game of the season. Islanders are number 2, Devils are 3, Rangers are 4, and Flyers are 5. That's kind of a tough division to play in, I think, that Atlantic Division. Northeast Division, the Sabres are number 1, Bruins 2, Maple Leafs 3, and Sens 4, and then Canadiens in dead last. And in the Southeast, Hurricanes are on first, Panthers are 2, Caps are 3, and yeah, Thrashers and Lightning off to a little bit of a rough start. Alright, let's take a look at how our players have been up to this point so far. It looks like Cliff Roning's off to a good start here through 28 games with 25 points. So I knew Cliff Roning was going to be one of our better players, and so far it seems like he is doing that. But I do want to take a look at how good we've been doing on like the power play and all that type of thing so far, even though obviously it doesn't really matter because we're not trying to be that good so far this season. We are currently, though, where in the entire league? 22nd among 28 teams. Alright. It's probably because we played like the most in the league almost. Alright. Goals for per game wise, we are not too bad offensively right now, but obviously we played the most amount of games almost, so kind of makes sense. There's some teams that have only played 22 games. Goals against per game wise, looks like we're not super good defensively, which makes a lot of sense. Our power play looks pretty bad based on that percentage. Yeah, we don't have a good power play right now, 11.6%, even though we had 2 power play goals in the first game of the season. We've only scored 9 more since, just kind of crazy. Our penalty kill on the other end looks really good though, 86.7%, so a little bit weird because we're not that good of a defensive team, but our penalty kill is good. We're a solid offensive team, but our power play is not good. That's very weird. All right, let's take a look at some player stats so far at this point in time. See if we could identify any guys that we want to potentially trade in this first year yet. So Cliff Ronning on 25 points in 28 games. Greg Johnson on 23 points. Tom Fitzgerald on 17. Sebastian Bordelot on 12 points. Somehow Tom Fitzgerald's a +7, which is pretty good for, I guess, a third liner. But I guess Bordelot is doing pretty well since he's in the lineup. He's shooting 23% too. Damn. Robitaille on 10 points. Legwand only on 9 points. And only 1 power play point, and that was probably in the first game of the season. Not doing as good as planned for David Legwand. That's kind of weird. Thought he would do a little bit better than that, but that's okay. Mark Mowers on 6 points. Shellberg on 23 points. Alright. Yachmanov on 19 is pretty good too. Peltonen on 11. And Patrick Cote scored a goal in 4 games and had 16 penalty minutes. How much fights? And he scored on his only shot on goal too, which is kind of funny too. He had 2 fights. 2 fights when he got put into the lineup in those 4 games. Pretty crazy that he scored a goal though. Right wing wise, Scott Walker on 16 points and Valchevik on 15. Okay. So I do really like our depth scoring kind of on offense, but we kind of got to identify who we could potentially flip away this year. If we look at like their contracts, oh man, it goes back up. I'm going to have to go to the contract screen after this. I'll do that just so you guys can see who's up for renewal this offseason, so we can kind of think who we could trade and who we might want to hold on to a little bit longer. Bill Holder is off to a good start, 16 points in 28 games, only the 1 goal but 15 assists. Barahowski on 14 points, not bad. Scratchins on 10 points. Timonen on only 8 points. I don't know why some of these guys are not simulating like they should. Like, you think with the offensive awareness, the passing and stuff like that, Timonen would be much better. But apparently not. Lintner on 6 points and Miller on 6 points. It's alright. Goaltending-wise, Mike Dunham has not been super good, but Vokun has been playing pretty well as a backup despite having a losing record. Any goalie goals yet? No. No goalie assist either. Alright. Let's take a look at around the league so far and who's leading in points and stuff like that, because I am curious on that stuff so far. Joe Sakic is leading the league. Him and Ron Francis, so it's the 2 older guys. Interesting, with 38 points apiece. Jaromir Jagr up there with 37. Bure up there with 37 too. A lot of close scoring in the league at this point. Best goal scorer so far is Pavel Bure with 26 goals. Him and Jagr. Sakic has 25. Palfi has 22. And then it drops off by 6 goals. Interesting. Best defenseman so far this season is Al MacInnis with 27 points in 26 games. He's got already 12 goals on the season too. So Al MacInnis is shooting it like crazy. A lot of slap shots probably. Tapuino with 26. Bleh. I almost said I don't know what I'm trying to say. Okay. What about goalies so far? Who's doing good goalie-wise? Heavy Bullen on 13 wins. Shutouts-wise, it's Urbe and him. Yeah, it's probably Heavy Bullen that's making Arizona simulate as good as they are. Dominic Hasek's having a pretty good season too, but he doesn't have a lot of wins. Like, his team's definitely letting him down, which makes sense because Hasek was really good, but his team in front of him was not as good back in those Buffalo days. Interesting. Any goalie goals so far this season? I'm curious on that. No. Most assists so far is Cujo, and then a bunch of other guys on 2 assists. And then, yeah, the rookie stuff is broken, so that's interesting. Who's leading the AHL in points out of curiosity? Kevin Miller. Okay. Ron Sutter got sent to the minors. Unfortunate. Lubomir Visnovsky's playing for the Kentucky Thoroughblades. Interesting. Looks like Kentucky Thoroughblades have a lot of good players because they are producing quite well. Bob Bass and Esa Tikkanen was sent to the minors after he got signed in free agency. A lot of guys that were really good in the 90s in the AHL, seems like. Alright. So there is that. Let's take a look at the contract situation so we can kind of debate about who we want to potentially trade this season. Like, I don't know if it's too early to necessarily make trades, but we could take a look at the trading block anyways, just in case you guys want to see what's available. But in terms of our contract situation, considering we didn't look really at this last time, these are the guys that are up for renewal. There's not really any big name players on our roster that are up for renewal. Jan Vopat, but he's a depth defenseman, and then you have like the enforcer and Cote, Crow. Not what I say Crow. I don't know why I say Crow. Crow. Man, I'm like completely out of it for some reason today. I'm just like really tired or something. I don't really know. But Crow, not really much of anything, obviously, and then those other guys, not really either. And no goalies up for renewal. But if we go to like our main roster, if we go to a couple years out, yeah, if we go to 2 years out, who is up for renewal in those seasons? Scott Walker. Yeah, Scott Walker's a big one for sure. Yachmanev, Peltonen, Valchevik, Bordelot. A lot of the guys are up for renewal in the next few years. If we go another year out after that, Kimmo Timonen obviously is the big one. Skrastins, Shellberg, Like, some of these guys are signed for like 2-3 years each, so we could think about trading some of the older kind of guys on the roster. So Cliff Roning's obviously a big one we could trade away before he starts dropping off. That's definitely something we could look into. Bill Holder, same type of boat. He could get dealt considering he's getting older. Tom Fitzgerald, do we want to trade our captain or hold on to him? Patrick Schellberg's already 30. So we do have some older guys we can move away from. I'd like to keep Greg Johnson here until we maybe win a Stanley Cup, but obviously he's already 28, so the window of that is pretty low. And goalie-wise, Mike Dunham probably would be the goalie that we'd want to ship away just to get Vokun being that starting goalie at some point. And then we could get Mason in as the backup to see if he could develop into that fringe starter goalie. But yeah, we could ship out Mike Dunham too, potentially. So there's that. Let's take a look at the trading block just for fun, and then I'll be it for this episode, just because I don't really want these episodes being too long for you guys. I know that you guys have stuff to do, and I have to record more videos anyways after this. So, but let's take a look at the trading block, see if there's any intriguing faces on there that maybe we could think about trading a right Cliff Ronning for or something like that. I would like to hold on to Cliff Ronning, but at the same time, it makes sense with his age that he's going to drop off eventually. So with his trade value getting as high as it is, we might as well move him at some point. So Tenkrat, Schwinnard, Stephen Pete, Trent Hunter's on the block. That's kind of an intriguing one. High top 9 potential with the Ducks. Teppo Newman on the block. I don't know why Arizona's shopping their defenders, considering they're doing well this season, but they have some good players on the block, but obviously they're more just to make your team good right now, which we're not trying to be. We're trying to more look at the future, so younger players make more sense. Or we could bring in crap players like Chris McAlpine or something like that, like depth defenders. Marty McSorley, for example. So we could have more face punchers. There's some prospects. Eric Bolton, Denny Hamel, and Alish Kolik. Davidson's not really anything. Andrew Peters, if we want a face puncher. We definitely have options for younger guys, which is good to see already. But obviously I don't really know exactly what type of deals we want to make, because we could always wait a little bit still before we make trades. Craig Adams on the block, Shane Willis, Joseph Vasicek. So yeah, there is options to bring in, which is good. Andy McDonald got immediately thrown on the a block by the Avs, so they literally just signed him to put him on the block. There is Radim Verbata, obviously top 6 potential. He's pretty good. Steve Moore, but obviously he was a face punchy, not a face punch. Or I think that's a bad joke to make considering what happened, but yeah. Brian Wilsey on there as well. Is Andy McDonald playing in the AHL right now? I guess so, yeah. 11 points, 24 games, not too bad. Verbata is not signed yet because he's in Gatineau still. Interesting. Dallas, Nico Kapanen. Yeah, there's some solid prospects on the block already, which is good. But is it too early to make trades? Probably. We could always wait a little bit longer. Like next episode, I'll probably simulate up to a day before the deadline so we could look at the block again. So, and then we could take a look and see if the AI is making any crazy trades. Christian Huselius is a pretty decent one, but he is already 22. They also have Peter Worrell on the block. Jeez, I can't talk still. Novoseltsev on the block. Nilsson. Tedorenko is trash, so no thank you for Tedorenko. Montreal, not really anything other than Stefan Robida. He's pretty good. Matt Karkner's on the block, another face puncher. Man, the amount of face punchers on the block is kind of funny. But yeah, if you guys see any guys that you want me to bring in, hey, Willie Mitchell's, that's a decent one too. If we want to bring in a defensive prospect, he is already 22 as well, but New Jersey won't be able to use him anyways because New Jersey's got a stacked defensive core. Mark Lawrence on the block, he's already 28, but still that's not really that bad. Rangers have some solid players on the block. Tim Taylor, Johan Holmquist, and Jason LaBarbera, okay. Ottawa, Rob Zamener, Arvidsson. I don't know why every team's trying to get rid of some good players, but some solid prospects too, like I said. A lot of face punchers. Fedorik, Bulleris, Lassard. Damn. Yeah, the Philadelphia Goon Squad. That's what it seems like. Pittsburgh. John Slaney. Never really got much of a chance at the NHL level, but he was a very good AHL player. Very good. Like, he had like 26 goals one season, I think it was. And I think it was this season, if I remember right. Johan Hedberg. Another interesting one there. St. Louis. Ladislav Nagy on the block is a huge one. Ladislav Nagy would be actually really intriguing. He is playing in Worcester right now. He's got 20 points in 28 games as a 20-year-old. I do like the option of Ladislav Nagy if we want to trade Cliff Ronning to St. Louis. Bryce Salvador is also on the block, and Barrett Jackman, so they have some decent players there too. Toronto, Adam Mayer, Sean Thornton, more bottom six type of guys, and also Ponikarovsky. Vancouver, not really anything there. Washington has Barch Beach and Civic. Jeez, Barch and Beach on the block is funny. And that's that. Interesting. Yeah, there's some good prospects. We could definitely make some options trades if we want to. Like if we were to trade for Ladislav Nagy for hypotheticals, what is his trade value looking like compared to Ronning's? I'm curious on that. Because I do like Ladislav Nagy. I think he was kind of underrated. Okay, so we could definitely get Ladislav Nagy and more for Cliff Ronning. That's an intriguing option. The thing is, Ronning signed for 4 more years, but he is likely going to drop off. But it would be a decent move for the future of this team in terms of getting ourselves a good prospect. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Nashville Predators Throwback 2000 franchise mode. So next episode, we'll obviously simulate more. We'll probably simulate up to a day before the deadline. We'll take a look at some trade options out there as well. We might make some trades next episode, depending if you guys want me to make trades already. But I think it might be better just to wait a little bit longer first, just to see if there's anything else that comes to play on the trading block and that type of thing. And obviously, we're going to keep tabs on what the AI is doing in terms of trades and all that. And hopefully, there's some pretty fun deals out there. Send anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.